I remember sitting one day and I kept asking myself, am I just lazy? Am I just here because I don't know, because I have fun doing nothing or just postponing it? But then I remember my ex-girlfriend at the time told me, well, how many lazy people moved first to Germany and then to Australia to get a sort of the water to a PhD? Like, I don't think lazy people will even think about it. And then
Mm,
really struck a chord. And I told myself, yeah, that's kind of true. I feel lazy. I feel guilty. But at the same time, I want to keep going. I want to do things. I want to improve myself and to learn more stuff. After about a year, there were I did something called a neurodevelopmental evaluation, and they left me really with a sour taste because their answer, well, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but the answer was your IQ is too high for ADHD, or your working memory is fine, so you can't have ADHD. And I told myself, yeah, but I go to where I am because I'm struggling and because I'm always stressing and trying to do the best that I can, but it doesn't mean it's easy. There's a
yeah.
lot of struggles there and a lot of suffering and sleepless nights and being exhausted and having no energy and being anxious and feel guilty all the time. I understand that the IQ is above average, but I think that's kind of expected from masters and PhDs. It's not any extreme, any genius level. It's just a little bit above average for PhD, but that doesn't mean that I haven't struggled to get here.
Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss unconventional productivity tactics designed for neurospicy people. I interview neurodivergent guests who figured out secrets for getting a ton of amazing work done without burning out. I'm your host, Jeremy Nagel. I'm an ADHD software developer turned startup founder and PhD candidate. I built FocusBear to help with my own productivity and burnout challenges. Welcome to episode 116 of the Focus and Chill podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Gabriele Marini today. Gabri is an academic researcher at the University of Melbourne. Originally from the island of Sardinia, Gabri moved to Pisa for his master's degree, and from there, life took off. He briefly worked in Frankfurt, Germany at the European Central Bank before embarking on a new adventure to the other side of the world, down under in Melbourne, where I am and where he did his PhD. Through lots of adventures and struggles, he eventually finished his PhD before it could finish him, became an Australian citizen, and is now looking for new challenges and adventures. Welcome to the show, Gabri.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for having me. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great and really excited to talk to you. We've had a few chats already and keen to ask you many questions, starting out with your journey of being diagnosed with ADHD.
So I will say this when I was really young. I will say way before the internet was a thing, way before computers were everywhere, games were everywhere. Vividly remember sitting at my desk at night and trying to finish an assignment for high school. I was studying history and I kept telling myself, why can't I just sit here and do it? Why can't I see my sister? She sits there like every day, half an hour, and she's very straight. And then after a week, she's done with it. But I couldn't. I will spend the whole day and even the whole night sometimes just sitting at my desk with a book open, reading the same paragraph, and I could not get myself to understand anything what I was reading. It got to the point where I had to cancel everything. I wasn't going swimming, I wasn't seeing friends, I wasn't doing anything. I was just trying to sit there and do that. And I keep telling myself, if I sit there long enough, eventually at least the paragraph or a page will be read. Well, that will only happen at 5 a.m., usually 3 or 4 hours before the exam or the oral examination that we had at school, because we used to have lots of oral derogation examinations in high school in Italy. And so that it kept happening. That kept happening every time, every semester of high school, every time there is an exam. And I kept telling myself, how's that possible? I just can't do it. And that also came with a lot of extra things like fidgeting, moving my hands a lot more than an Italian will do, I will say. I don't move them a lot, but I fidget a lot. I've been told that many times. And then the thing obviously became bigger and bigger as I kept going through my degrees, right? So when I started with my bachelor's, then things were starting to be a little bit hard, but I could still manage with just working a few hours or maybe a day before the interrogation for the oral examination. But I think the worst bit was obviously the master's degree and obviously the PhD eventually. It kept building up incrementally until during the PhD, I just could not hold it anymore. I had no time to do anything in my life because I had to spend 24 hours pretty much, I'll say 20 hours just sitting at a desk and trying to get anything to do. And I remember sitting, that was here in Australia that I got diagnosed. I remember sitting one day and I kept asking myself, am I just lazy? Am I just here because, I don't know, because I have fun doing nothing or just postponing it? But then I remember my ex-girlfriend at the time told me, Well, how many lazy people moved first to Germany and then to Australia to get a sort of the water to a PhD? Like, I don't think lazy people will even think about it. And then really struck a chord, and I told myself, yeah, that's kind of true. I feel lazy, I feel guilty, but at the same time, I want to keep going. I want to do things. I want to improve myself and to learn more stuff. And that kind of triggered a lot of observations around me. I will remember coming to the lab, my PhD lab, and I will see my colleagues just coming at, let's say, 10 a.m., sitting down and let's say 10, 20 minutes, and they will start to work, reply emails and stuff. Or we will have a meeting, and then after the meeting, it will take me 2 to 3 hours to sit down and get back into the focus and doing things. And then I told myself, now there's something wrong. Like, there's no way I'm doing all of this and canceling everything. I'm not exercising. I'm not seeing anyone. The only thing I want to do is work. And that's what triggered eventually. Someone was like, you know what? You have a lot of energy, a lot of always fidgety, always careful about everything. You like, I can perceive all little sounds, all movements, mostly because they distract me, not because anything else. And yeah, and that's how I started. I started through psychology first. I went to a psychologist, one of the free ones with the University of Melbourne that I was doing my PhD at. But obviously, they can only direct you towards someone else. So I eventually found someone else, and after about almost a year, it's a long journey. It's a long process. After about a year, I did something called a neurodevelopmental evaluation, something similar to, I don't remember the name specifically. And they left me really with a sour taste because their answer, well, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but the answer was your IQ is too high for ADHD, or your working memory is fine, so you can't have ADHD. And I told myself, yeah, but I go to where I am because I'm struggling and because I'm always stressing and trying to do the best that I can, but it doesn't mean it's easy. There's a lot of struggles there and a lot of suffering and sleepless nights and being exhausted and having no energy and being anxious and feel guilty all the time. I understand that the IQ is above average, but I think that's kind of expected from masters and PhDs. It's not any extreme, any genius level. It's just a little bit above average for PhD, but that doesn't mean that I haven't struggled to get here. And then it was really funny because right after that, I went to see a psychiatrist, an amazing person. He's probably one of the best doctors I've had in a long history of health issues. And he told me, like, I've been working for 14, 15 years as a psychiatrist for people with ADHD, especially athletes. And it seems pretty blatant, pretty obvious to me that you've got it, especially after I brought all the evidence from high school. There were videos of me. This was the cutest one. There was a video of my parents sitting on the couch and my sister just sitting there with them. And in the video, there's me running back and forth on the couch, jumping on top of everyone, just going back and forth. Just could not stop. And they had to grab me and just put me on the couch and say, just sit down. And I told myself, how could you even not see that? How could you not identify there was clear problem with some tension dopamine? But obviously it wasn't very well known back then in Italy. So that was a little bit of a journey, but it started many years ago, I would say, 16, 18 years ago? It's been a while. But the diagnosis has been official since 2021, if I'm not wrong. It was right after COVID started, if I'm not wrong. So thankfully, because COVID was a bit tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like an unnecessarily long journey. I was just talking to someone about cross-cultural understanding of ADHD. And we were talking about how hyperactivity might be less noticeable in certain cultures, that we were using Italy as an example of, say, interrupting and blurting out might not be perceived as a social faux pas, that it might be actually normal. And that other things like jumping on top of the couch and disrupting people.
It reminds me a lot also of high school itself. I don't know how high school it is here because I've done it in Italy, but obviously it was a very old school kind of education system, right? So you had to sit there, you had to listen to the teacher explaining whatever is the topic for the day. And I was always sitting at the back at the, there are different tables. I was over the last one in the corner, mostly because I was unable to pay attention. I remember it was physically painful. I remember my whole body felt like, it felt this sort of, not rage, but more like, I need to do something. I need to move. I need to talk. I need to do whatever. And I just couldn't do it, right? Any little noise or any movement that I will do, it will be called out and say, hey, what are you doing down there? Why is it so loud? Why are you not paying attention? And that Once I went back to look at all my reports from every semester of the year, it was always the same. It was always, he's really smart, he gets really good grades, but he can do better. He's just always distracted, doesn't pay attention. I never did my homework. That's the worst. And I know I got a PhD now, and it's weird to say, but I've never done my homework to the point where we're doing Latin. We do Latin for 5 years, and I loved it. I had really good grades and pretty okay with languages. But then my final grade for the year was 8, and she put it down to 7 because she said, yeah, that's true, but you've never done any homework, and all of your schoolmates have done it, so it's disrespectful to them. And like, aren't homework supposed to help you learn better? And if I really learned it, then that's the funny thing. But I understand that there's respect to the other people. Like, it's also about being able to follow not orders, but I'll say follow some suggestions about how to learn better. And if I had done it before, maybe I would have learned what is the best way for me to learn instead of trying a way that worked. That was the one studying at night, and then being really stressed and being exhausted by the end of this long period while I was studying. So that was that too. And I agree, it's very well accepted at all. And people don't even know about it. And if they do, it will be a little bit stigmatized and say, oh my God, that lady's son has ADHD or this people out in the other. How can he do that? What is she gonna do? Oh my God. And the truth is that it was just a way to feel and be different, right? And something that had to be cured or had to be hidden. Obviously, I didn't know until I did my own research when I grew older. So.
What was it like after you did get the identification and the support from the psychiatrist?
That's a very interesting question. I might go a little bit off the path here, but there's a lot of things that surround ADHD, as you probably know. It always has some comorbidities. And when it comes to me, I think there were a lot of issues with, and there still are, and we're still battling to, with anxiety and depression, mostly caused by the one traumatic childhood. So the one that's called CPTSD, so complex PTSD. So it was really hard also for me to understand or even accept which one was the real issue. Was the real issue me growing in a family which was emotionally neglectful, physically abusive, and not very welcoming or loving and supporting? Or was it more just something that was already there before any of this started? Because that's something that we eventually explore with our psychiatry and psychologists as well. So it is part of their journey as well. And I started also with these things. So I told them, I'm not really sure what is happening, but I'm sure there's something wrong because I keep trying to do these things, but I feel guilty when I don't do them. So I then, neglect basic needs just to try and finish these things. And then exploring this, it came out that, there was the component of trauma and being unable to sit still because of a house that was unsafe to begin with. But there's also the component itself, which is mostly developmental, but also a little bit of genetic about ADHD. So that was a little bit of what happened. So we started with that, and then eventually the journey moved from the psychologist that was helping me with the complex PTSD and all these mood disorders, and then a psychiatrist that me how with ADHD. So they go a little bit hand in hand, they go together. And it's been really helpful for both sides. So I'm always going with both of them. I go my psychologist and then my psychiatrist, and they always go. They know each other because they're in the same clinic. So I update them regarding what's happening in each side of the treatment, and it's been very helpful. But that doesn't mean that it's been smooth. I think a lot of people that have been diagnosed probably had a similar journey, and I don't know many. So I'm talking from my own perspective. I don't know many people here got diagnosed. Definitely don't know anyone in Italy. So this is just my idea of what I experienced as an international student who then became a domestic student here and a permanent resident and a citizen, and then going through the journey. But the beginning was a bit tough to accept it because, and this is, I don't know if it's something that you, a lot of people have experienced, but I always felt like there is always a possibility there's something wrong, and so I can work on it. But the moment you go in there and you work on it, then suddenly if that doesn't work, there's no more hope. I don't know if that makes sense. Once you work on it, if that doesn't work, if the medications don't work, the stuff that you do doesn't work, and if the treatment for anxiety and so on don't work, then what's next? What do you seek then? So that was a little bit scary as well, because it was kind of delving into the unknown and not really knowing whether there was going to be a way out, or a good way out, in the sense that a good, nice and healthy and happy life. But so far it's been okay, dealing with medications and so on, with anxiety and so on. But the ADHD meds have been pretty good for me as well, at least. I started with Ritalin. It was a bit get a lot of migraines, a lot of just feeling very in my head and not present enough. And then even with the lowest doses, and then I switched to dexamphetamines, and they seem to be much better. It's been my go-to for the past 2-3 years, roughly. But yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. And unfortunately, I do have to talk about these uncomfortable other disorders like the PTSD or the anxiety and depression, which, by the way, they can be bipolar as well. So it's been a mix of many things, and understanding them and then train them has been really helpful. But it's a long journey. It's a very long journey.
Yeah, thanks for sharing so vulnerably about that, because it is very common to have the friends that come with ADHD and they come with their own challenges.
Yeah. And I don't think many people talk about them. One of the challenges is always having people kind of, I'm not saying understand, because I think it's really hard to understand something you don't live. Just like, for example, whenever I understand the issues being grown up as a woman, right? If there are some issues and societal issues, I will never be able to understand it. Just like someone who does not have ADHD will never be able to understand it. But even if they do get that point about ADHD itself, how it affects your life on a daily basis, there's the whole thing, as you said, about all the baggage that you carry with you and that affect your whole life. That is, even just the self-confidence. A very important thing for me was rebuilding my self-confidence and be like, after all these years, after all this work, I feel like I can do something. I feel like I can sit down and work a little bit. So maybe I wasn't lazy, I wasn't dumb, I wasn't, just extremely anxious all the time, which I probably still am. I can do something. So rebuilding the self-confidence has been really helpful as well as part of the journey.
That's great to hear. So you're more like your sister now and just methodically sit down and work consistently?
Really? No. I don't know. Do the medications work that way with you? But I guess if you have autism ADHD, that's a mix of being really careful with the structure and also a little bit about being distracted. Am I guessing right a little bit?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just there's no order, there's no organization whatsoever. It's always just I try. I try even when in medication. I'm always writing down my notes, my to-do list, and I forget about it. I have reminders on 4 different apps. I leave in my calendar, because I always tell my friends, if it's not in my calendar, it is not in my head.
Yeah.
So just know that. And I think we know that as well with all the calendar invites about the podcast and so on. I think my sister, I wouldn't say like kind of neurotypical. She's very smart, and I will not take that away from her. She's got 3 master's degrees. She's worked really hard. She's really smart. So she has a particular way of starting and improving herself and her knowledge. And I go my own way. That's why I'm saying I probably wouldn't see ADHD as a full-on disorder. In fact, it's been challenged lately. I find it easier for me, at least, to see it as a completely different way of being and acting on a daily basis. This is obviously my take. But telling myself, I just can't do that. Like I could try, but it will be wasted effort to try and organize all of it. It will be more exhausting than anything else. I also focus on what I'm good at, right? If I'm really, one of the most important things is multitasking. I need to do many things at once, right? I do better at multiple things at once than only one, and then I get stuck with it and I get frustrated and just skip it. No methodical yet. I don't think it will ever happen. I don't think we'll ever change. I think it will always be last week or the last few days. But the difference is that now I know I can do it. I know I've done it before. I know I can do it. I proved it. So I feel a little bit less anxious than I did back then when I just didn't know what was going on. So that helped.
Yeah, same here. That was a joke about being like your sister, because I've also got a sister who is like that, and she's very methodical and works through things steadily. I'm a bit more in that direction, but not quite there yet, and I don't think I ever will be. I think that the idea of working in waves is really appealing to me, and also having multiple waves going at the same time, as you said. So if I get bored
wave,
with
it's
one
a really
project,
good point. Wave is a really good point. I just realized that today. So up until a couple of weeks ago, I was in the higher wave, right? I was working a lot and getting a lot done. And now I'm a little bit exhausted. So I'm taking everything a little bit more chill from last week and this week. So similar thing. I should also mention an interesting point, and you actually brought up my sister, which is perfect because she's my twin sister. So that's I feel like it's a very unique scenario. So on top of all the issues with the family, the most important thing was having the situation of 2 children the same age, growing the same household, and seeing how our challenges evolved and how life evolved, right? For example, it wasn't much of an issue until we were in middle school. where for some sort of coincidence, my sister had to be moved into the same classroom. It was halfway throughout the year. There was no other way to look for another classroom. They were like, okay, let's just put in the same classroom as Gabrielle for the rest half of the year. I know it's not the best choice, but it's the quickest one and the easy one. And I vividly remember the teachers again telling me, why did your sister do all the homework? You haven't done anything. She's done all of that. What have you done? Why didn't you do it? And I felt so guilty. And I just wanted to tell them, obviously, you can't really say it to teachers and professors, but I just wanted to tell them, just because you're twins that we live in the same house doesn't mean we're the same person. We do different things. We see things in a different way, but they just wouldn't get it. For them, if she's done it, why didn't you do it? There can be a difference, not even in the brain, that could make me, hate or even avoid the homework I was supposed to my sister. They just couldn't fathom this difference. And then translating into high school, although like in high school, we're different classrooms, but we have a lot of common professors. So exams will be roughly at the same time. So there was always this comparison going on, right? And I guess it's part of what eventually made me realize that, hey, I think there's something wrong. If my mom can do it, my dad can do it, my sister can do it, then why can't I just sit there and do the things even though I don't have any other distraction? So it was a really good point bringing out my sister, because it was a really good way of comparing, but also bad way. Obviously, that's all comparisons.
It sounds like a constant threat to your self-esteem, having a continual longitudinal twin study going on right in front of you.
True. But obviously, there's a lot of other difference. I mean, just think about the fact that my sister probably had the same challenges, where I will get a slightly higher grades, and everyone else will be like, why did you study all the time and then you'll probably go to higher grades? It goes both ways, right? So I think it was unfair. I think that child was unfair to the both of us. It's not fair to say that my sister had a good end, because it's not true.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, that was it.
So let's move on now to talking about your work. You've completed your PhD, you're doing research and doing several things at the moment. Could you tell us what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so there's quite a few. As I said, I've done my PhD in computer science, just like all my degrees, and it was mostly focused on data analytics and sensors and how people move indoors, so indoor localization. I've always been passionate about the topics of geography, and anything that has to do with localization. So I worked on that, and I'm still working on it on different projects. Eventually, after I finished the PhD, I'm not going into that now because it's a really long story. But eventually, after I finished that, more than a year and a half later than all of my colleagues, all of my peers, because of all the struggles with mental health after COVID. I know many people suffered during COVID. For me, during COVID was perfect. I'm an introvert. I was really happy. The post-COVID was really tough. That's a long story. I was a bit tough, but after that, eventually I finished and got the PhD, and now I can focus on the projects that I like. And I've been really happy with the job, because the position opened right after I finished the PhD. I was a perfect candidate for it. There's someone I was working with on a separate project told me, hey, maybe we should just try apply. I ended up there. And I swear to God, this is one of the best places for people with ADHD or autism and so on. And no, it's not a coincidence that many of my colleagues have ADHD or autism as well. It's a part of the university where we help researchers with whatever research projects they have, where they might not have the right skills to analyze the data. So we're called Melbourne Data Analytics Platform. So we help everyone within the university to do all this analysis or more technical work that they might not have the skills for. And this is perfect because I can work on many different projects, at least 2 or 3 a year, plus another smaller ones throughout the year, but they're all different topics. So one of them is the one that I did last year that I just presented in Greece right before our podcast. It was a project about the Budgebee National Park, which is down in South Australia, at the border with South Australia in Victoria. And what they've done is really high resolution LiDAR scan of the whole national park. And they needed someone to run a fluid simulation on the terrain to see where it will flood and where the Aboriginals 14,000 years ago, they will trap the eel and farm them. It's the oldest aquaculture system in the history. So that was really, really exciting. And I love nature and everything. So I got to take part of it and present the results in Greece. We found the simulation brought up some really good results and highlighted some challenges that were definitely taken by humans back then. Then there's another project now that I'm working on, hyperspectral imaging, where we're analyzing the spectrum, including non-visible light spectrum, of a scan of rock art paintings in caves. So instead of going then taking a bit of the pigment from the raw painting, we can just scan it and see the non-visible light and then analyze it and see what we can see any of these paintings. There's another one, again, similar to your free simulation, where we run different free simulation algorithms and we try to compare them and see which ones are the best for each different field. And there's a new one running about climate change. So there's a lot of different projects. And on top of it, that's where we met. I'll be working on this startup with method called ExeWatch. And the startup focuses on physiotherapy and exercise. And we're using sensors similar to the ones that I used back during my PhD, but they're more focused on accelerometer and gyroscope. And we're using them to detect the repetition of any physiotherapy exercise. So to see whether your range of motion of your shoulder has been recovering or whether it's been getting worse. And we can, if you put a sensor here and here, then we can track the angle between these two. And so there's a lot of algorithms underneath, so it's oversimplified, but it's been working pretty well. But I'm keeping myself busy. That's the thing. There's really never a moment to relax as I used to, which I'm starting to miss a little bit. But it's part of the process. And as you said, I told myself it goes in waves. For maybe a year or two, I'll be working on this, again, with smaller waves within the year. Maybe next year or two, I'll be taking a little bit more easily. Same as it happened with the PhD. There were some years were really tough and others were more chill. So these are a lot of the projects that I've been working on. As you can tell, they're very different. So if I get bored with one, I can pick up another one. There's always something to do with something to learn. So I'm really happy with that job and that position, that work situation now.
It sounds really stimulating and enjoyable. And you were saying that you've got less time to relax, but hopefully still some to do things outside work. I know you mentioned you used to be really into, open water swimming,
powerlifting. So that's, I will say that during high school and all the time, what kept me sane was swimming. So I used to be I don't know if you can say a semi-professional swimmer. I used to do lots of competitions. I had the time to go to the nationals for the long distance one. I was really slow, but I could keep, relatively slow, so much faster than most people, but I could keep the high speed for long distances. So I could keep my 85-90% speed for 7 kilometers, for instance. Right? That was my long distance swimming. And it's really funny because my sister just finished a 7-kilometer swim. So we are finally at the same level on there too. So there's always been this balance where there is academia, but then also sport. Unfortunately, I had to stop for a while. I cut my tendon, one of my fingers here, which shortened the whole tendon here. And so what happened is the bicep, it's pulling at the shoulder a little bit. So whenever I swim, I get this really insane pain. And that's when I started powerlifting. I go here, I wanted to start with sport again. Swimming was a bit tough, was hurting a lot. So I told myself, well, I'm not going for speed. I'm quite short, I'm really heavy. I'm not going for speed, so let's go for power. And so that's what I've done. I started working a lot on powerlifting, heavy weights. I think my best squat, it's 145 kilos, which I'm very happy about. It's almost twice my body weight. I know it's not amazing for people to go there all the time, but for me, that do it once in a while, it's great, pretty happy. But on top of it, I think other important things for me are nature, hiking, anything that has to do with outdoors. I went surfing this weekend, even though the weather was awful. In fact, I'm a little bit sick. I looked for it. It was me. I know I'm dealing with it, but it was really fun. It's just something about being in the ocean and on the surfboard, even if I'm a terrible surfer, but just being in the ocean for me is enough. So those are some other things. I gotta say, though, in the last year, and that again probably relates to ADHD again, I've really burned out at the end of my PhD. It was a really tough time of my life at the end of the PhD. I told myself, you know what? I just had to finish it. I'm really close. I'm going to stop everything. And it's been a year and I still haven't recovered. I'm still on burnout, still no energy, still trying to get back into a little bit of a routine because I know the exercise helps me, but then I really struggle to get started because I'm constantly exhausted, probably because of the burnout. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds tough, but I'm glad that you are able to do very exciting things. For people who aren't in Melbourne, it was absolutely terrible weather over the weekend. So more power to you, and I understand why you maybe got sick.
Well, we did it. We went in the water, and then after surfing, we usually take off the wetsuit and just put with a Speedo in the cold water. It's a post-surfing dip. It was mandatory. Dealing with it, it's fine. I deserve it. But it was really fun.
Yeah.
But there are other things, despite the gym. For example, one of my favorite hobbies is photography. Again, since last year, they also destroyed my motivation. I haven't published much, but I used to have lots of beautiful pictures. There was one that was posted by Visit Melbourne. So I'm really proud of it. It's the one about Mel Penge. I don't know if you know the event.
Okay.
It's so really proud of it. Another one, you can't see his blood, is a beautiful photo Nusa on the back. Even if it is the frame is broken, so you won't see it anyway. So lots of photos. I kept being told, to try and monetize it, but I told them, just a hobby. I like to keep it as a hobby. I have enough side projects right now.
Yeah.
And then I will say gaming. It used to be a big part of my life, then it stopped for many, many, many years. And it's been a few months now that I restarted and I found a passion for it again. It just can be tough after burnout. And somehow I'm still finding a little bit of time to do it. Although sometimes that time is taken away from sleep, but we'll not talk about it.
We'll talk about sleep later.
Yeah, I know we'll come to talk, and it's also an important part.
The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by Focus Bear, a focus enhancement app for audio. All right. Well, the next part is about how you optimize your productivity. And I think an important consideration here is also how you optimize productivity without burning out too, because you spoke about in the past needing to work really long hours in order to achieve things and leaving things to the last minute. What are your tactics now for how you make progress?
Yeah, super important timely question, because after all that I've done with the PhD, but I seen the PhD, and it is funny because I said it to a friend of mine just the other day. He started his PhD, and I told him, see the PhD as a journey where you're also discovering how you work best, because it's a long journey where there's no one to tell you what to do. Things can go wrong. You can do it in many different ways. You can go there every day and do something. You can have big chunk of work. So during those years of trying to figure out how it worked best and what is the best way for me to not burn out. I burned out anyway in trying that, but I was also part of the journey of getting that diagnosis and so on. That was before I was diagnosed. So for context, I started PhD in 2018. That diagnosis didn't come until the end of 2021, roughly. So there were most of my PhD life was undiagnosed and really struggling. Right now, I will say there are a few ways to deal with it. So the first thing is I really try to listen to my body and my mind. There are days that it just won't work. Some days, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like feeling tired, but it's a mentally tired. I guess in technical term will be an executive dysfunction, tiredness, right? So being forcing it, and even with a medication especially, be using this sort of muscle for so long, then I'm exhausted. So I need to be careful about that. And that's how I'm trying not to get into the burnout stage. Just listen to my body and say, can I do that? Can I do all these things in a day? Really lucky with the job though, because it's very flexible. Sleep has always been an issue. As you probably could tell from the first thing that I said about high school, it's always been an issue. And I always tend to work best at night, which is not to say, I don't know if this goes for all the night hours, but for me, just peace and quiet. There's no one expecting anything from me. But that has changed because moving to Australia, there's always someone awake on the other side of the world at night. So I'm like, oh my God. So I just have to shut up the phone, just shut it down. I'm not seeing any message. I've replied to people from Europe in my morning. Otherwise, I'll never have time for me to relax. Some of the ways that I handle it, I have a little bit of a routine when I get to work. It's been a few years, but I've been testing medications here and there and see what works and what doesn't. For instance, some people take Vyvanse, which is one of the long-acting dexamphetamines that last for a whole day. It just wouldn't work for me because I will wake up really late. And if I take it even at 10 or 11 a.m., I will be awake until 4 a.m. So I couldn't do it. So I had to rely on the short-acting one. Usually the way it works, I wake up. The first thing I do usually just drink a sip of water, put on some clothes, and go cycling. I know the shower I will take it at uni. And that's because if I wait and take a shower and relax at home before I leave, I'm never leaving. I have to leave. I can't let my brain think. I just have to leave. There you go. So I just get ready, cycle. Luckily, the university has a beautiful underground parking and locker rooms where I can have my shower. I have my locker. I have my fresh, clean towel every day. Really lucky from the point of view. Super privileged. Can't complain there. And after I usually have my coffee. Usually, I will take the medications right before the coffee. So I have the coffee, relax for a little bit, and then wait for them to kick in. Usually what I do, it sounds silly, but I just fidget with my laptop. I just turn it on and I just start moving random stuff until I feel that I'm getting into it. And then usually first thing will be the emails, because are the things that give me the most anxiety. So if I can deal with them, it's a small, quick reply, I will do it. Otherwise, probably have to go when I have a little bit more energy. So that's usually a bit of the main structure. And then depending on the day, I really need to block time in my calendar to work. I think many people will relate to this. Have you ever heard of waiting mode? Probably have. It's this thing where you're working, but let's say it's 10 a.m. Let's say 10:30, because I'm never there at 10. There's a meeting at 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I can't work. I just am sitting there. I'm like, I have a meeting at 2. What if I miss it? What if I lose it? What if I'm late? And then I go into this waiting mode where I'm just paralyzed and I can't do anything. So the only way I usually can do it is to block the time all the way until the meeting. So I have 2 or 3 hours block where I'm going to go in a focused room and no one can distract me. Because it takes me a while to get into it. And then I had to keep thinking about going to the meeting and not missing it and getting ready for it. So that's also part of it. So knowing when you need this time to kind of isolate a little bit and regain energy is also really important. When it comes to sleep and timing, I guess it really depends. I tend to start work around 11 because I go to bed late. That means that some days I have to finish work really, really late. Others, I'm happy to finish it early as long as I've done what I had to do. But that's the trick. In my head, I've never done everything that I was supposed to do. Even though I have done more than enough, I've done more than I had to do for the day. In my head, it's always this, I could have done more. I could have focused more. I could have done this better or something. But the truth is that it's a bit of a demon in your head, because then, that can go for everything. Nothing will ever be perfect, and you can keep doing that forever until you get burned out. So I need to be mindful of that too, and tell myself, I've done enough for today. I've done, maybe I work 6 hours, but full on, and I'm done. Also, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that not only I had to stop myself from finishing early and not too late, but I also had to try and tell myself, get some time for yourself before going to bed. The one that people call, what's it called? Revenge bedtime procrastination.
Yep.
And that is huge. It's a really big part of me, unfortunately. And I guess that comes from childhood, right? It's always been my little safe place and safe time where I can do things without anyone bothering me. Let me think there's anything else. Yeah, I can give a few more tips about my daily work routine. I will say something that really helps me is white noise. It's really funny. My favorite one is the laundromat. This is my noise. It's a laundromat white noise. It's amazing. It's just a constant washing machine and water, and that's it. And it's a little bit of stray noise. It's perfect. Drink a lot of water, something that I didn't do at the beginning when taking medications, and that was really tough, especially when you come towards the calm down and you feel really tired. I'm still struggling with it, but I would like to make sure that the exercise is more consistent. Again, I really struggle after I finish my PhD to find a new routine with a new job, even though it's just as flexible. But before, what I used to do was around 6, 7, I would go to the gym, and for me, that was the end of the day. And that was great. Now I'm a little bit struggling with it. I guess it's a little bit harder when doing a PhD, your work is yours, and you organize it yourself. And unfortunately, also fortunately, there's no one else to help you. So it's you managing your time. But now I work with a team. So I need to also be mindful about doing things timely so the other team members can keep working, or that making sure that participate in the meetings. So that's, I guess I'm still finding a little bit hard to find this good balance. Because if it will be before, when I work at European Central Bank, it was 9 to 5. That those times you have meetings at work and you do whatever you have to do in those times. But in academia, being so flexible, you can always do a little bit more, right? Or maybe there's some dead time waiting for meetings. So it's always this feeling, you can do more. There might be someone else on the other side of the world that sends you an email about a publication. So it's finding a little bit hard. But it's getting there, trying to re-implement all these good habits in my routine. But as soon as I lost them, I'm feeling it.
I remember you mentioned one of the harder things with your PhD was other students in the same room who were having conversations and being very noisy. Is the white noise the main solution to that, or have you found other tactics as well?
So for me, I cannot live without noise cancelling headphones. They're just, I have 3 pairs, and this is an article of ADHD. I have my own little setup at home, and then one at uni at my office. So I have my headphones here, my headphones there, my keyboards and trackpad here, and my keyboards and trackpad at uni. And that's because I can think about carrying stuff, but most importantly, I cannot forget about the noise cancelling headphones. I need them. I put them on. Most people, but not everyone, most people will know that if I have my headphones on, just don't talk to me or you can send me a message in Teams. I usually tell them, send me a message in Teams. And if I see it, it means that I'm ready to talk. If I don't see it, it means it's muted on do not disturb, so I won't reply. Sometimes it's very loud. It's an open office. Like I'm not gonna. It's not anyone's fault that it's loud. It's absolutely fine. But I prefer to go into my little focus room. Thank God for uni these rooms. It's just a very tiny room with one ultra-wide screen. You put your laptop in there, book you for 2 hours, soundproof, amazing. That's yeah. And I'm really struggling now because I live in a highway and there's constant noise. It's constant noise and it's driving me crazy. But yes, noise cancelling and white noise or a quiet room, 100% extremely important for me, at least for my ADHD. No distractions.
Yeah, that's great that they have those focus rooms. I'm keen to dig into emails as well. You mentioned they cause great anxiety for you. How do you approach them?
A lot. So I think, when you go into the anxiety and OCD kind of thing, some people tend to either have a very empty inbox or a very full inbox. Depending on, I think both sides of things have a little bit of anxiety. One is about opening all of them. The other one is about making sure they're clean. For me, it's making sure they're clean. Because I know that if there's no number there, then there's nothing I forgot to reply to. And forgetting things is really, it's been a huge cause of anxiety back then. Obviously, it still is, despite all the reminders. So yeah, for me, it's just really important to make sure that there's an email. At least I mark it as, I have to do something about it and I have to block time for it. And it takes me hours to just get into it and be like, okay, I need to reply to those emails. But yes, unless they're very urgent, I group them together and try to deal with them in a chunk. And I need my inbox to not show that there's new unread emails because that will give me more anxiety. And what am I forgetting? So yeah.
How do you achieve that to not have it show the number?
I just read them all as soon as I get here. Usually during the weekend, I don't open them, but I unsubscribe every time I get a spam. The first thing I do is unsubscribe. I don't know where I subscribe, but just see the notification bothers me and distracts me. So I'm trying to prevent the notification from coming. If it's work, usually I only get emails on my laptop, so I can just mute it for a little while I'm working for those couple of hours. Or when I receive it, then I just look at them and chunk. There's a little thing that you can tick on Outlook to make sure that they are marked to do something, they're flagged for something later. So that really helps. Yeah. But unsubscribing for everything has been the most important thing. If I get spam and I see notification, I'm distracted. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, know what you mean. And then how about with Teams? A good idea to put yourself onto Do Not Disturb for a bit. I sometimes find it's a bit overwhelming that I'll get tons of messages on Slack or the equivalent. Do you have a strategy for that?
Yeah, it is very overwhelming. And we only use Teams to this job. I didn't use it before I had Slack, but it was a little bit less used, I will say, as communication. Similar, as you say, it gets a bit overwhelmed with all the messages. So usually when I block the time for work on my calendar, it also shows as the no disturb on Teams.
Oh, yeah.
And they know that I will get back to the message. But if I see it, I'll try not to click on it so it doesn't show that I've seen it. Otherwise, I will have to reply. So just give myself a little bit of time before I reply. And then I know it's probably bad for work, but I'm trying to remove the sense of urgency from everything. Because if everything is urgent, then nothing is. So I need to really try and time it a little bit and be like, I cannot reply to Teams now. I'll do it in a couple of hours after I'm done with this. And that has been quite helpful. But I understand some Teams chat need an answers really fast. That's the point of Teams, right? To have a quick reply. But I cannot be available 100% of the time. So I've got to try.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of Teams is like a 3-hour reply. Email is maybe 24 to 48 hours. And if it needs to be more urgent than that, then come and bust into the focus room and pull you out.
100%. And that's, I think my teammates by now know that if I'm not replying, I'm really into it and don't distract me. But if it's really important, just come and talk to me or send me more messages. Eventually I'll see you can also do the little for just to ring, give a notification if you're on Do Not Disturb. So you can do that, but please don't.
It's a good idea, and I'm glad your colleagues are kind to the way that your brain works as well, because some people don't.
It's a very understanding group. I gotta be honest. I'm very lucky, and many of my colleagues also have autism or ADHD, so they understand it. So I'm really lucky. I will say also, I think when it comes to emails and Teams, I think the keyword that I found out recently is context switch. And I think it's another really important point to keep in mind with people with ADHD. For me, the hardest thing is switching from one task or one job or one environment to the other. Let's say I was coding for a few hours and now I had to go into a meeting, right? It takes me quite a while to change. I know it's bad, but change personality. You need to get into this personality of being in the meeting and being ready to reply and being present, which is really hard to be present with ADHD because even when I met, I'm like, am I paying attention? Did I miss something? Am I missing something? Oh, I missed it. There you go. It always goes like that. So there's also a little bit of, I need to switch back into it. And same when I switch back into my after work, like when I'm coding or reading or doing literature reviews, that takes me even longer. That's why I try to put all the meetings in a day. Because as I said before, there's this waiting mode where I have to wait for the meeting and I'm not doing anything until the meeting. But then after the meeting, it will take me 1 to 2 hours to switch back to task. I only go meetings for a day, or I only have one meeting a day. If I can have 0, that will be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's all related to emails, meetings, and Teams, everything that is commonly used, but it's very destructive.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be a world in the future where there are fewer emails and meetings needed. But in the meantime, it's been great talking with you, Gabri. Where can people connect with you?
I think the one that I use the most for social is Instagram. Because again, I use it for photography. I haven't published a bit, but it's still there. And it's Gabrielle XX7, so GABRYXX7. Or you can find me look for Gabriele Marini, end up with Unimelb, and you see my fancy Find an Expert page. So you'll find it at Unimelb. And that's my official work email and all the projects that I'm working on. So either way, it's fine.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for coming on. We'll wrap the show with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.